Hello everyone, welcome back to the lecture series on magnetism in condensed matter physics. In the previous video we have talked about the types of exchange interactions, and we talked about direct exchange, super exchange, and then RKKY interactions. Now in this video we will talk about double exchange interaction and anisotropic exchange interactions. So that will complete our types of exchange interactions. So let's begin with double exchange interaction. In some oxides, it is possible to have a ferromagnetic exchange interactions, which occurs because the magnetic ions can show a mixed valency. That is, they can be exist in more than one oxidation states. So therefore, double exchange interactions arises because magnetic ions can show mixed valencies. Or can exist in multiple oxidation states. It was first proposed by Clarence Jenner, who also gave the theory of Jenner diode. The common example of magnetic ion which can show mixed valency is manganese, which can exist in 3 plus and 4 plus state. Now you must have studied that the 3D degenerate orbitals splits into T2G and EG orbitals when placed in a crystal field. So in a free ion, there exist 5 d orbitals which all are degenerate. But for the octahedral environment, these degenerate energy levels, they split into T2G and EG levels, with T2G level lying below EG levels. While for tetrahedral, the situation is completely opposite, and the EG levels lie lower to the T2G level. These T2G levels are dxy, dyz, and dzx, while the EG level contains dx square minus y square and dz square. Now let us consider an example of manganese in this compound, where strontium is in the fraction of x and La is in the fraction of 1 minus x, where x is in between 0 and 1. This particular compound have a perovskite structure, where the strontium is divalent, so it exists in the oxidation state of 2 plus, while lanthanum is trivalent and it exists in 3 plus oxidation state. So as this is a neutral atom, so the total charge must be equal to 0. So therefore 3 times 1 minus x plus 2 times x plus the oxidation state of manganese plus the oxidation state of oxygen is minus 2, and there are 3. So this total will be equal to 0. So therefore 3 minus x plus Mn minus 6 will be equal to 0. So therefore the oxidation state for manganese will be 3 plus x. But if you notice here, this x is a fraction and the oxidation state cannot be a fractional number. So let's rewrite this so that we will get 3 times 1 minus x plus 4x, which will be equivalent to 3 plus x. So therefore 1 minus x fractions of manganese ions are in the plus 3 oxidation state, and x fraction of manganese are in the plus 4 oxidation state. So therefore manganese in this particular compound shows mixed valency. Now let's see how the double exchange can explain the magnetic ordering in this particular compound. In this structure, the manganese ions are in the octahedral site, so therefore this particular scheme will be followed. Here the exchange involves in the outermost orbital of each atoms, which are 3d4 for Mn3 plus and 3d3 for Mn4 plus and 2p6 for the oxygen 2 negative ion. Here, if this spin up electron from this oxygen, it goes to manganese 4 plus ion, so it will go to this Eg level with a spin up, And the spin up electron from this manganese 3 plus ion, it can go there to fill the vacant state. In this way, there is a smooth delocalization of electron from manganese 3 plus to manganese 4 plus. And as the delocalization of electron helps in reducing the kinetic energy, this particular state will be favored. Now you can see here that in the ground state, the moments in Mn3 plus and Mn4 plus are ferromagnetically aligned. Now let us see what happens when in the ground state they are antiferromagnetically aligned. Here in the ground state, the magnetic moments of Mn3 plus and Mn4 plus are antiferromagnetically aligned. And now let us see how this electron can delocalize over this ionic solid. Now from this oxygen orbital, the up spin and down spin both can go here in the Eg orbital, but according to the Hund's first rule, S has to be maximum, so therefore only down spin can go here. Now there is a vacancy of down spin here, but there is no down spin here in the Mn3 plus to fill the vacant state. So therefore this up spin cannot go here to violate the Pauli's exclusion principle, so the delocalization is not possible because of the Pauli's exclusion principle. So therefore double exchange predicts that electron movement from one species to another will be facilitated more easily if the electrons do not have to change spin direction in order to conform with the Hund's rule when on accepting species. This model is similar to superexchange, but in superexchange the ferromagnetic or antiferromagnetic alignment occurs between two atoms with the same valency, while in double exchange the interactions occurs only when the atoms have an extra electron compared to the other. Moreover, the ferromagnetic alignment in these systems allows the Eg electron to hop through the crystal and the material becomes metallic. So therefore, double exchange interaction is essentially the ferromagnetic superexchange in the extended system. Now let us talk about the final type of interaction, that is anisotropic exchange interaction. In the anisotropic exchange interaction, the spin-orbit interaction plays a role similar to the oxygen atom in the case of superexchange. Here, the excited state is not connected with the oxygen atom, but is produced by the spin-orbit interaction in one of the magnetic ions. So that there is an exchange interaction between the excited state of one ion and the ground state of another ion. This effect is also known as Dzyaloshinskii-Moriya interaction. When this interaction acts on the two spins S1 and S2, it leads to a term in the Hamiltonian given by d dot S1 cross S2. Here, this vector d vanishes when the crystal field has an inversion symmetry with respect to the center between the two magnetic ions. But its value is 0 if the inversion symmetry is broken. Now the form of the interaction is such that it tries to force S1 and S2 to be at right angles in a plane perpendicular to the vector d, so that the energy is negative. So therefore, this HDM will cant the spins by small angles. So therefore, it is also known as a weak ferromagnetism. So therefore, this DMI interaction is characterized by broken space inversion symmetry and non-zero spin orbit coupling, and it is significant for stabilizing topologically non-trivial magnetic textures like skyrmions. Here you can see the spin textures known as skyrmions. which are stabilized because of Dzyaloshinskii-Moriya interaction, or DMI. This interaction arises in the system with strong spin-orbit coupling and with broken inversion symmetry, and it is very crucial for the formation and the stability of skyrmions. And this forms a swirling pattern of spins. These skyrmions are nanoscale vortex-like structures where spins are arranged in the swirling pattern. These are topologically protected, meaning that their structure is stable and resistant to any perturbation, and their stability arises from DMI. Here at the core of the skyrmion, the spins point in one direction, usually up or down, while at the periphery here, they point in the opposite directions, and the spin in between gradually rotate, creating a smooth, continuous transition. These skyrmions can be stabilized in magnetic materials under certain conditions, such as the application of external magnetic field or the change in temperature. Now, due to their small size and stability, the skyrmions are being explored for the use in advanced technologies, particularly in the field of spintronics, where they could be used for data storage and processing. So therefore, researchers are continuously searching for new materials that can host skyrmions at room temperature and under practical conditions. So this makes skyrmions as a hotspot for new physics discoveries. Now let us consider the Heisenberg model for exchange interactions, and we will find the expression for this interaction in the continuum approximation, in which the discrete nature of the lattice is ignored. For that, we will first assume that Jij can be taken to be equal to a constant j if I and j are the nearest neighbors, and to be equal to 0 otherwise. Hence, the Hamiltonian can be written as minus of summation over j si dot sj, where the summation is over only the nearest neighbors. Now consider that at ith location, magnetic moment mi is located. Now at a distance rij from it, there is another mj magnetic moment, which is kept at an angle of phi ij, so that the displacement vector here will be equal to mi minus mj. Now here assume the classical spins with phi ij is very small than 1 for any pair of I and j. That is, the system shows ferromagnetism, but the spins are not completely aligned. So in that case, the cos of phi ij can be approximated using Taylor series as 1 minus phi ij square divided by 2. So therefore, the energy of the system will be minus js square and then summation of cos phi ij, which will be equal to a constant term plus js square divided by 2 and then the summation of phi ij square, where this constant term refers to the energy of the completely aligned state for which cos phi ij is equal to 1. This constant energy can be ignored. Now let us define the reduced magnetic moment as the magnetization divided by saturation magnetization, so that this small m represent the unit vector, so that in the vector notation mi and mj can be shown here with the displacement vector given by mi minus mj. Now for small angles, the difference between mi and mj can be approximated by the arc length, so that phi ij is nearly equal to mi minus mj mod and divided by mi mod or mj mod. Now since mi and mj are unit vectors, so this value will be nearly equal to just the difference between the two magnetic vectors mod. So therefore, phi ij can be approximated as the magnitude of mi minus mj, where mi represents the magnetic moment present at ri vector and mj represents the magnetic moment present at mj vector. Now we can expand m at rj around ri using the Taylor series expansion as M at Rj will be equal to M at Ri plus Rij dot del of Mr. So therefore the difference between the two magnetization is given by Mj minus Mi is nearly equal to Rij dot del of Mr, where we assume that this magnetic moment as a function of R is a smooth function in the continuum approximation. Now if you remember, this is the value of phi ij, so we can substitute it in the equation of energy. So therefore we will get the energy of this system as J s square and then the summation over phi ij square. Now as I told you earlier that in the continuum limit, we ignore the discrete nature of the lattice so that the summation will be converted into integration. So therefore the energy will be given by A times the volume integration of gradient of mx square plus gradient of my square plus gradient of mz square, where A is given by 2j s square z divided by A. Here z is the number of sides in a unit cell, and the value of z is equal to 1 for simple cubic, and 2 for body-centered cubic, and 4 for face-centered cubic, and A represents the nearest neighbor distance. Now this equation represents the exchange energy in the continuum approximation. This relation is crucial for continuum approximation of discrete spin systems, such as in the case of micromagnetic theory. There are several micromagnetic simulation platforms such as MUMX3 and OHM. There, this approximation is crucial to find the exchange energy of the discrete spin system. Now, this expression allows the exchange energy between neighboring spins to be expressed in terms of the gradient of the magnetization field, leading to the energy functional as E exchange proportional to the volume integration of gradient m whole square. This is the foundation for driving the Heisenberg's model, Landau-Lifshitz-Gilbert equation, and understanding the spin waves, domain walls, and magnetic textures. So this is it for today, and in the next video we will talk about ferromagnetism and antiferromagnetism and their related theory. Thank you so much for watching this video.